The morning started like any other family road trip, chaotic, caffeine-fueled, and filled with the kind of optimistic planning that always crumbles within the first hour. Our 3 kids, ages 5, 7, and 10, were already establishing territorial disputes over invisible seat boundaries. Their matching travel pillows ask you as they half-watched cartoons on the tablet. Mom, Emma's looking at me. I'm not even looking at you. She's breathing my air. I caught my husband's eye in the rearview mirror and we shared that universal parent look, the one that says we chose this life. But some days we question our judgment. The plan was beautifully simple: drive 3 hours north, cross into Canada, attend my extended family's reunion, pretend to enjoy my aunt's infamous potato salad, and return home with our sanity mostly intact. My parents had asked us to carry an extra bag since their car was packed to the brim, and I'd agreed without hesitation. Family helps family, right? The red duffel bag sat innocuously in our trunk, wedged between juice boxes and my carefully packed hostess gifts. I hadn't given it a second thought. I should have. We were maybe 20 minutes from the Canadian border when everything changed. The kids had finally settled into a peaceful cartoon coma, the coffee was still warm, and I was actually starting to relax into the rhythm of highway driving. That's when my husband went pale. Not just regular pale, the kind of bloodless, sickly white that makes you immediately scan for the nearest hospital. His knuckles were white against his jeans, and when he spoke, his voice came out in a strangled whisper. Turn the car around, now. I actually laughed, not because it was funny, but because the request was so bizarre my brain couldn't process it properly. What? Why? Just, please, turn around. My husband is the human embodiment of calm. I've seen him handle kitchen fires, emergency room visits, and 3 kids with stomach flu simultaneously without breaking a sweat. This man doesn't panic, ever. But he was panicking now. The last exit before the border curved away from the highway like an escape route, and I took it without really deciding to. The moment our tires left the main road, I felt his entire body relax, not completely, but enough to make it obvious he'd been bracing for impact. Okay, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Want to tell me what's going on? He shook his head, staring straight ahead like the windshield held answers. Just drive. Anywhere but there. The kids started to notice. Are we going the wrong way? My middle child asked. That perfect child radar that detects any deviation from the promised plan. We forgot something. I lied smoothly. I'll explain later. 20 minutes of tense silence stretched between us as we drove deeper into unfamiliar territory. Finally, he pointed to a narrow access road, the kind of place you only find when you're lost or desperate. Pull over here. I did, my hands trembling slightly as I put the car in park. He got out and walked to the trunk with the measured pace of someone approaching a bomb. Through the rear window, I watched him stand there for a long moment before opening it. When he returned to my window, his face held an expression I'd never seen before, exhaustion mixed with a terrible certainty. I need you to see something, he said quietly. The gravel crunched under my feet as I followed him to the back of our SUV. He opened the trunk, then unzipped the red duffel bag my parents had asked us to carry. He folded back a layer of clothing, a child's sweatshirt that looked innocent enough. And then I saw it. Packets, multiple packets, poorly concealed in what appeared to be a toiletry bag, sealed in plastic, not medicine, not vitamins, not anything that belonged in a family car with 3 children in the back seat. The air left my lungs in a rush. I wasn't scared, not yet. Fear was still traveling toward me at the speed of understanding. What I felt was something heavier, like the ground giving way beneath my feet. They put this in our car, I whispered, my voice barely audible over the blood rushing in my ears. He nodded grimly. With the kids, I looked up at the sky, still blue, still beautiful, still completely indifferent to the fact that my world was imploding. How did you know? Something about the way they smiled when they handed us the bag, he said slowly, too relieved, too final, like they were saying goodbye to a problem. He shrugged, trying to shake off the memory. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Right before the border, it hit me. The terrible understanding washed over me in waves. We were 20 minutes away from crossing an international border with enough illegal substances to destroy our lives. With our children in the car, our children, who were supposed to be the most protected people in our world. And my parents, my own parents, had made us unknowing mules. The pattern I should have seen, sitting in that anonymous access road. Everything clicked into place with horrible clarity. This wasn't random. This wasn't desperation making good people do bad things. This was the culmination of a pattern I'd been trained not to see. Growing up, my parents lived by a simple philosophy: image over substance. If you looked successful, seemed generous, kept your lawn pristine and your holiday decorations straight, then you were doing fine. Didn't matter if the credit cards were maxed out or if we ate cereal for dinner 3 nights running, we were doing fine because we looked fine. I'd been the responsible one, the boring one, as they called me, while my sister inherited their charm and careless charisma. I got their bills to organize and their crises to manage. I was useful, I was reliable, I was the family's designated adult, even as a child. 4 months before this trip, they'd asked me for money. My nephew needed private school, they said. He was struggling, being bullied, and they'd found the perfect place. Exclusive, expensive, life-changing. They just needed help with the deposit. I'd said no, gently, but firmly. I had 3 kids of my own, a mortgage, a life that didn't include funding my family's latest financial crisis. The silence that followed was arctic. My mother's voice when she finally spoke was sharp enough to cut glass. Of course, I forgot. You have rules. Suddenly, the family reunion had become very important to them. They were thrilled to see us. Everything was working out. They'd figured things out. I should have asked how. The confrontation. We drove the duffel bag back to their house in complete silence. The key was still under the fake rock by the front door, the same hiding place they'd used since I was 12. We let ourselves in, placed the bag in their hallway like a quiet accusation, and left without a word. That evening, my phone buzzed with their number. My mother's voice was bright and artificial, like frosting over rotten cake. "Oh honey, we were so worried, you just disappeared. Where's the bag?" The question hung in the air like a confession. "We dropped it at your house," I said calmly. "If it was that important, maybe you should have taken it yourself." The pause that followed told me everything I needed to know. She knew that I knew. "We're not doing this," I continued. "Don't call again." I hung up and, for the first time in my adult life, didn't immediately wonder if I was being too harsh. But they weren't done. 3 days later, they showed up at my door with practiced smiles and hollow eyes. They'd come to clear the air, they said, to check in. "We didn't think it would be a big deal," my mother said, as if smuggling drugs across an international border was equivalent to borrowing sugar. "We were desperate," my father added. "You wouldn't help." There it was, the family catchphrase. The one-size-fits-all excuse for every boundary crossed and every trust betrayed. "You wouldn't help." "You didn't just betray me," I said, my voice steady despite the earthquake happening inside my chest. "You risked our lives. You risked your grandchildren." Neither of them spoke. "We're done," I continued. "Don't call. Don't come here. You don't get to see the kids. This is over." My mother's smile flickered but didn't die. "You'll come around," she said with nauseating confidence. "You always do." I walked inside and locked the door behind me. The final straw. 3 days later, my world tilted again. I arrived at school pickup to find my children gone, picked up by my parents, who'd told the staff I'd asked them to collect the kids. I drove to their house in a blur of panic and rage. Inside, it looked like a toy store had exploded. New Legos, candy, balloons, enough sugar and plastic to fund a small country's GDP. My children were glowing with delight, clutching their spoils like it was Christmas morning. My parents were playing the role of perfect grandparents, the kind who gave freely and loved unconditionally, except they weren't. And this wasn't love. This was strategy, emotional bribery, weaponized affection. They'd never spoiled the kids before, not once, but suddenly, after I'd cut them off, Santa Claus had arrived with a debit card. "We're leaving," I announced. The kids whined. My parents smiled like they'd already won. As we walked out, my mother called after me in a sing-song voice, "They'll come back to us. They always do." She said it like a promise, like a threat. The escape. That night, I sat on my bed and looked at my husband with perfect clarity. "We have to leave." He didn't ask why. He didn't need to. "North Carolina," I said. "Your company's office. Your parents." I wasn't ready before. I am now. We packed our lives into boxes, said goodbye to everything familiar, and disappeared, not in the dramatic run-away to find yourself way, but in the we deserve peace way. 6 months later, surrounded by mountains and the kind of quiet that doesn't hide danger, I got an email from my sister. Subject line, "Emergency, please read." Our parents had been arrested, this time for actually doing what they'd almost let us get caught for. They'd tried to smuggle drugs across the border themselves. No middlemen, no family scapegoats, just 2 people in their 60s who still thought rules were suggestions. My sister's email ended with a familiar plea: "They need help. They need money for a lawyer. This is serious. You have to put the past aside and show up. Your family." I read that line 3 times, then hit reply. I did show up once. I'm not doing it again. The aftermath. They took a plea deal. 4 years each. Enough time to sit with what they'd done. If they were capable of that kind of reflection. Sometimes I wonder if I went too far. Then I remember my children's faces in that school parking lot when they weren't there, and I know I didn't go far enough. We have a life now. It's not perfect, but it's ours. The kids laugh more. My husband sleeps better, and I haven't had to translate guilt into silence in a very long time. The red duffel bag taught me something my parents never could. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away. Sometimes family isn't the people who share your blood, it's the people who would never put your children in danger for their own gain. Sometimes the only way to save your family is to leave your family behind. What would you have done? Was I right to cut them off completely? Or should family forgiveness have no limits? Share your thoughts below. Friends, what do you think of this story? Write your opinion in the comments. Would you like more stories? Don't forget to subscribe Revenge Radar and hit the bell button so you don't miss any videos. See you in next video.